Everybody in from the waiting room. So welcome to Paint Night Live. Jessie is teaching Sunflower Fields tonight. So this is a really fun one. It's been really popular, so we're excited to do that tonight. Thank you, Michaels, for having us. We've been doing this for a little over a month now, so we're really excited. We have a lot of repeat people we see. Hi, everybody. Yeah. Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time painting along with us. Jessie's going to teach you how to paint this painting in just about an hour. If you are painting along, definitely let us know if you have questions or comments, and we'll try to answer them live. I'll answer them in the chat back to you, or I can ask Jessie and we can answer them back and forth and talk to you guys, which is great. Yeah. And then if you were just watching for your first time, or maybe you don't have your supplies yet, and just watching to relax and unwind, it's Monday, starting the week off a little slow. This is a great way to relax. Again, like I said, just watch Jessie paint, and then you can do this when you have some me time, alone time, once you get your supplies. All the supplies are available on michaels.com and at Michaels in store. So I know a lot of stores are still doing curbside, same day delivery, so lots of options to get all these folk art paints in your hands. And also the video will be available on michaels.com after the fact. So again, if you want to go back and watch it, even if you painted along this time and you want to try again, or you just need to get caught up, or again, if you need to get your supplies even this weekend and go ahead and watch after, you can go right to michaels.com on their community classroom page and watch this video. One other thing is everybody is getting settled and getting ready to paint. We're going to be doing a giveaway. So once you comment or have a question in the chat, you'll be entered to win. We're going to do a random drawing at the end, and we'll announce the winner, and you'll win $50 worth of plaid products. So that's always really fun. And we love chatting with everybody. So I can see everybody. Yeah, everybody's getting in and getting.
I'm so excited to see you.
Yeah.
Fix my camera real quick. There we go. Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome if you guys are new. Like Kira said, this is our Monday night paint night where we're going to teach you to paint a painting in just about an hour. If we have a lot of questions and if we have a lot of people painting along, it might take a little bit longer than that, but that's okay. And like she said, tonight we're going to be painting Sunflower Fields, which is a really fun one. It's really fun for summer. It's got lots of bright colors. So yeah. Do you think we're ready to start going over supplies?
Yeah, we have a lot of first timers.
Welcome, welcome guys. Thanks for coming.
Okay, yeah, I think we get started with supplies, and then we'll just, you know, if we're going too fast, let us know. We try to keep Jessie tries to keep a really good pace. Again, if you have questions about the paint that we're using, the color or the brush, let us know, and one of us will be able to answer it for you.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I keep having to, there we go, fix my little camera here. Okay, yeah, no problem. So, for supplies for tonight, I have here in front of me a 10 by 10 canvas that I bought at Michaels. So you can see I've got my example here. It's just a little bit bigger. This is a 12 by 12, but tonight we're going to be doing a 10 by 10 just to make it a little bit quicker for us for the class. I've also got this variety set of Craft Smart brushes from Michaels. So I love this set because it's got our big flat brush for like base coating. It's got a bunch of different round brushes for doing like liner work and stuff like that and small details. So this is a great brush set to have, and we use this a lot for this series of Monday night paintings that we're doing. So go ahead and grab these brushes the next time you're at Michaels, or go ahead and order them online. And then I've also got our FolkArt acrylic paints tonight. So for the FolkArt acrylics, the colors we're going to be using are teal, navy blue, pumpkin, yellow. I'm not sure which yellow I told you guys, but any bright yellow will do. Raw sienna, coffee bean, and wicker white. So feel free to substitute any of these colors. Like we need a dark brown and a light brown. We need an orange and a yellow. We need any old white is fine. So if you're having trouble getting supplies, if you are in an area or you haven't been leaving home much lately, that's totally okay. Just use whatever colors you have at home. You could even make these into daisies or something and do like a pink flower or a white flower. That's totally up to you. So don't stress if you don't have these exact colors. Don't even worry about it.
And I'm sorry, Jessie, I don't have it written down either. Somebody's asking, what is the name of the brush set that you're using?
I want to say it was like a 10-piece variety set or something like that. They have a lot of really great variety sets in the Craftsmart line of brushes at Michael's. So I'm sorry, I don't have the packaging in front of me, but yeah, they're just this really great. This is like it's got rounds and flats and angles and liner brushes.
Yep, it's a 7-piece set and it's Craftsmart. And again, if you look in the class when you registered, there's a list of supplies. So if you don't remember, you need to get your supplies after, you can always check that out.
Yeah, and it links you straight to Michael's website where you can just purchase it. We can just order it straight to your house. So that's awesome.
Michael's is amazing.
Michael's is amazing. And then also I've got my palette paper here, which if you're not familiar is just like a wax coated paper. So it's really great for like mixing paint and like keeping your paint on. But if you've got like a paper plate at home, a plastic plate, or whatever kind of palette you like to use for painting is totally fine. This is just what I'm using. And then I've got paper towels for drying off my brush and cleaning off my brush. And I've got a water basin. So you've got a cup for water or some sort of Tupperware. That's totally great. So yeah, that's what you're going to need for tonight. We don't need a hair dryer or a ruler or anything. We're going to be doing some freehanding work tonight, so no problem. But I think we're probably ready to get started. What do you think, Kira?
Yeah, I think we're good. Again, some people have questions about the size of your canvas. Jessie is using a 10 by 10, but if you have a 12 by 12, something larger or smaller, you can definitely make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And this doesn't have to be, you know, I love square canvases. In case you guys couldn't tell already, I always do my paintings on square. I just think it's a really fun, you know, sort of shape. But if you've got a rectangular canvas at home, you may just have a, you know, more of your second flower or something. That's totally fine. You can kind of position the flowers. The way that I'm going to teach you to paint it, you can kind of position the flowers any way you want on your canvas. So don't worry about what size or what shape canvas you have. It'll work for this painting completely.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get started. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, welcome. Zoom in a little bit on you. Okay.
And there's nothing that Jessie is doing to the canvas. It's already, it's just out of the packaging. So she did not gesso it or base coat it or pre-treat it or anything.
Yeah, so when you buy canvases like this at the craft store or at an art store, they're usually pre-gessoed and you can kind of see, like that's what makes it white. Because the raw canvas on the back, you can see here is tan. This is what the raw canvas looks like. But they put, you know, in production, in manufacturing, they put like a gesso sort of coating on it. So you really don't need to steal these canvases. They are not porous. The paint won't just soak through like it would on this raw canvas. So you don't usually have to worry about that. Some people like to do a second coat of gesso just because they like it to be perfectly smooth, but it's not necessary. All right, so let's get started, guys. The first thing I'm going to do is put just a little tiny dollop of our raw sienna onto our palette. And so this is just like a warm light brown color. So if you've got something similar at home, or if you've just got a dark brown and that's the only brown you have, you can mix that with yellow and that will make this sort of warm, lighter brown color. So either if you don't have the raw sienna, which I'm using tonight, you can just mix dark brown and yellow. So what we're going to do is we are just going to grab our small liner brush. So did you say something, Kira?
No.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard something.
Yep.
I think I was echoing. So you're going to grab your small liner brush. I've got my number 5 liner brush. You can see here, it's not terribly small. It's probably more medium than small, but it's just a small round brush. And I'm going to dip it in water. And what we're going to do is we're going to water down this paint a little bit, because we're going to use it almost like pen and ink to do some sketching on our canvas. So this is kind of the way I like to do most of my paintings. I don't usually use a pencil. I usually just use my paint and my paintbrush and I do the sketching with that. So you want to water your paint down until you get sort of an inky consistency. So if you can see here, it's pretty thin. It's not terribly watery, but you know, it's like I said, it's pretty inky, if that makes sense to you guys.
And Jessie, real quick before we get started, some people have some comments about the chat getting in the way of their view. So you could either pull the chat over. I know on my screen I can kind of slide it to the side and change my view, or you can close the chat and just open it back up if you need it. So that's always an option also, because we don't want it to distract anybody while they're painting.
Yeah, because it does go over the screen a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can totally close the chat. All right. So I've got my number 5 liner brush, and I've got my inky, watered down raw sienna. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to start drawing this shape here. So we're going to start drawing this circular shape on the bottom left of our canvas. So it's going to be, for 10 by 10, it's going to be probably about the size of your fist. That's what I would say. So, you know, everybody's fist, of course, is going to be a little bit different size, but we're just going to say about that size. So to keep that in mind as you're drawing your circle. If you feel comfortable tracing something and you have like a cup that's a good size, feel free to do that. But we're just going to freehand it because it doesn't need to be perfect because flowers aren't perfect. Every flower is different. So here, we're just going to draw sort of a, you can see I'm holding my brush towards the end of it, and that sort of gives me a nice loose grip. I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm not holding it really tight. I'm just holding it very loosely. And I'm just going to sort of do a sketching sort of motion. And we're just going to try to make that circle. And it doesn't need to be perfect. If you mess it up and you make some sort of weird mark or something, look, see, don't stress about that. We're going to paint over all of this. This is just the underneath sketch. We're going to add tons of color and paint on top of it. So don't stress about messing it up at all. We just want to get the general idea of where these shapes are going to be on our canvas so we can add all the color in later. So I'm happy with that. It's just sort of our nice little round circle there. It's about, again, it's about the size of my fist in the bottom left of our canvas. So once we have that, we are going to start painting our petals on our canvas. So to do that, the most important part, in my opinion, about painting the petals is that flowers are always pretty symmetrical. And so you do want them to be about the same width all around. Of course, they're not going to be perfect, but we want to try to get them nearly perfect if we can. So to do that, instead of busting out a ruler, instead of doing all kinds of measurements, I'm just going to use my thumb, and I'm going to mark a mark on either side of my thumb. So hopefully you can see what I did there. That's going to be one of my petals, and my petal is going to jut out from that space there. So all I did is I made those two little marks. And again, it's about the width of my thumb. And I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to make another two little marks about the width of my thumb. And if you notice, I made a second mark next to it because we do want to have a space between our petals. So we want two marks for each petal. And I'm going to keep doing that all the way around my little flower center. I'll make them bigger so you guys can see them. So hopefully you can see that. And if you continue using your thumb all the way around it, it doesn't matter how big your thumb is, all of your petals are going to be the same width, which is what's important. It doesn't matter if it's the same width as my petals because it's your painting. So as long as all of your petals are the same, that's what's important. So here, we're just going to do that all the way around. And don't forget, you want two marks for each petal because we do want space in between each one. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just going to try to get it as close to even as we can. I'm just using my thumb again, my thumbprint to measure how big those petals are going to be. Again, don't forget, we want two marks for each one. And we'll do two there just to end it. So I forgot one there. All right, so it should look something like mine. I've got my rough circle there, and then it got what looks like little quotation marks all the way around our circle, and they're pretty evenly spaced. Again, I always say this and it probably gets repetitive, but it really just doesn't need to be perfect. We're just going to try to get it as good as we can. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to continue drawing those petals. And the shape of the petals, we're going to start drawing them pretty blocky and geometrically just to get them the placement right, and then we can kind of smooth them out and make them a little softer as we're adding the color. So the shape of them is going to be almost a diamond shape. So here, I'm going to draw one. I keep saying draw, but I'm still using my paintbrush. If you've got a pencil, that's fine too. I'm going to draw one just to show you the idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go on one of my little quotation marks that we just painted. And I'm going to go out to about, midway up the canvas. And then I'm going to draw another one going out. And it's going to be narrower at the base and wider towards the end. And I'm going to make it into sort of it's like almost the shape of a necktie. And that's going to be the shape of our petals. And I know it looks really blocky right now, but we're going to smooth it out and make it a little softer, like I said later on. We just want to really get these shapes blocked out. So I'm going to keep doing that. Going with my little areas that I marked with my thumb, making these necktie shapes. And you can see that I'm not making it super perfect. I just want to get an idea of where these petals are going to be. And of course, it's gonna go off the canvas down around here, that's fine. We're just gonna follow where our mind thinks they would go. Just gonna continue those lines off the canvas. You can see sort of how it's looking like a sun almost right now. We're gonna continue these lines. We wanna make them all pretty much the same length. So if you make each of the lines together the same length, then you should be good to go all the way around. I'm continuing again, just making this sort of necktie shape all the way around. And if you're thinking, my petals are really too far apart and doesn't look anything like the sunflower, the finished one, don't worry, we're gonna add petals in between them too. So this is just our front flowers, if you will. So I'm gonna give you guys a second just to sort of do that. Make sure you get all of your little necktie shapes painted all around your circle.
Yep, I think people are getting caught up. See everybody painting.
Awesome, I love when you guys join along. That's so fun.
I love after also, so we have a great Let's Paint Facebook group that you can check out, and people have been posting their paintings that night or the next day, so we get to see what everybody's turns out and looks like. It's really fun to go in the next day, and I know Jesse, you comment on a lot of them, so
yeah.
You can check that out on Facebook. So it's Let's Paint.
Yeah.
With plaid.
Yeah, Let's Paint with plaid. I always go on the next day. I'm always looking out for your guys' paintings. So there's always a handful after these Michael's classes on Monday night. So I'm excited Tuesday morning to wake up and see you guys that have posted your paintings. So make sure you do, because I'd love to see how your paintings turned out. Let's Paint with plaid.
Yep.
All right.
In the chat.
So hopefully you guys are catching up with your little necktie shapes. So the next step is going to be very simple. We are going to paint the little petals in between each one of these petals. And by doing that, we're just going to do a little peak, just like the top of all of these shapes, in between each one. So watch what I mean, just like this. We're going to do that in between each of these shapes. So it's like the little roof of a house, and we're just going to do that between each of these shapes. And again, these are really pointy and very like square looking, and very like perfect 90-degree angles. But don't worry, we're gonna soften them and make them a little bit more beautiful later on. Don't worry, it's not going to be so blocky when the painting is finished. So again, all we did was we just went between, and you don't need to worry about these, of course, because the petals here are going off of the canvas. So I just went and I put these little roof shapes in between each of my necktie shapes. Hope you like my little comparisons here tonight, to make those petals. And you can see already those petals look like they're behind the petals that we painted first. So that's kind of what we're going for, sort of a layered look. So once you've painted your little roof shapes, we're gonna go ahead and do the same exact thing we did, nothing new, and we're gonna make our little flower up here. So for this one, he's gonna be going off the canvas. So it's gonna be sort of like a watermelon slice up here, just a little corner of the center of our flower. You can see here, it's not a full circle. And you wanna make it about the same size as our first one. And we're gonna do the same thing up there. We're gonna measure our thumb and do our little quotation marks about thumbs width apart. The same exact thing we did.
So while people are getting caught up, there's some questions about floating medium, which we've used before, and the reason that we're not using it on this painting. So I don't know if Jesse, if you want to explain that, that's a really great question.
Yeah. So floating medium you can use to float colors. So if you guys are a beginner and you're not sure what that means, it means that you have wet paint on your canvas, and then you use the floating medium to more paint on it and to blend it together. And so you can float a color and create really beautiful like gradients and shading on your painting. So I like to use floating medium when I'm painting wet on wet. So if we're doing something where we're doing a lot of blending on the canvas, we'll use floating medium. And this one you can't, it does look like, you're right, maybe if you're thinking this one looks like there's a lot of blending going on, I did a lot of dry brushing for this one. So maybe that's why, if you're confused, we're not using floating medium tonight, because the centers are pretty quick, so we don't really need to worry about the paint staying wet because we do some blending in there. But the petals is a good bit of dry brushing. So don't worry if you don't know what that is. We're going to get to it, and I will show you every step of the way. But yeah, that's why we're not using floating medium tonight. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to extend our petals up here, just doing the same thing we did before. And these are going to be a little bit smaller because we are going to try to make this flower look like it's in the distance a little bit. It's beneath this flower that's a little bit above it. So here I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to extend my petals and make my necktie shapes. And we're going to try to imagine how they go behind this flower, of course, because we can't see the full thing. So we kind of have to use our imagination to know where these petals would be beneath this sunflower in the foreground. I'm going to imagine, you can see here, so I kind of got to the top there, and I know that there wouldn't be a blank space there. There would be a petal. So I'd have to kind of use my imagination to see where that petal would be, kind of paint that in. And I might do the same thing over here. I'm going to use my imagination, imagine there'd be a little edge of another petal right there. And then, of course, you need to use your judgment a little bit and see, are there any places where you would see the tips of the petals behind those, just like we did these little house shapes? And for mine, you would see the tip of the petal here. So I'm going to add one in, and you would probably see one there as well. So I'm going to add one in. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And then there would be petals in these little areas here, but we don't see the tips of those, so we don't need to worry about that. We'll just worry about adding shadow and shading to those later. Okay, how's everybody doing?
A couple people are catching up, so just give everybody a minute. It's hard. We don't know the correct pace for everybody.
I know. I know some people are probably waiting, and then other people are trying to catch up. So this is sometimes the part where people get the most confused. So I want to make sure everybody gets their general idea of where their flowers are right now. So that's why we're going to pause for a minute or two while those people catch up, because if you don't have your flowers drawn correctly, then it's going to be hard to start painting. When we start painting, you're not going to know where your flowers go. So I'll make sure everybody really catches up for this one, and then we'll cruise along through the painting part. So I don't know if you guys have used these FolkArt paints before. If you've painted with us on these Monday night paint classes with Michaels, then you definitely have, because that's what makes these. But these are my absolute favorite paints to paint with. So if you're a painter and you haven't used these paints before, I highly, highly recommend you order some from Michaels, because they're so thick and they're creamy, and they've got great coverage, and they mix so well. So these are my absolute go-to paints for doing any sort of painting on canvas or decorative painting even, anything like that. I definitely recommend these paints. So make sure you get some of these. Okay, so I think we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start painting the centers of our flowers. So to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put some coffee bean, which is our dark brown, on my palette. I'm gonna do about a nickel-sized amount. And I always try to put less paint than more on my palette, because I don't wanna waste it. So I don't want to dry out on my palette and get, like I said, wasted. So I always put a little bit, and then I can add more later on. I never put like a giant glob or puddle of paint on my palette. So we're gonna we're gonna pick up some of this coffee bean. I'm gonna wet my brush a little just to help it flow. Pick up some coffee bean, and we're going to fill in the center of this flower using a dabbing motion. So here, I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're just gonna dab like that, and we wanna get a good bit of paint on there. So the reason we're not just painting it in like that and just filling it in with even strokes is because, like you see, some of these people knew we were going to be doing some blending. We're going to be adding some more colors in, and we want there to be a good bit of paint on there. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you the brush I'm using. I'm using the number 8 flat brush. It's just a small flat brush. You can see here. It's just a small flat brush. So this is the number 8.
Just putting it in the chat.
Yeah, I can see a couple like comments pop up every once in a while. That's why.
Yep.
Every once in a while I see like a random comment pop up. I don't think I'm seeing all of them though, so. Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. We're using the number 8 flat brush, and we're gonna be using a dabbing motion. And for this one, we're gonna go a little bit quickly, not like super speed or anything, but we do want our paint to stay wet because we're gonna be blending, like I said, more colors into it. So I'm putting a good bit of paint onto my canvas. And again, I'm doing it in a dabbing motion, and I don't want it to be perfect around the edges because, of course, if you think of a sunflower in nature, the centers are very irregular. They're extremely textured, and so that's the look that we want to get. They're not perfect around the edges. They're not perfectly straight. They've got a lot of texture to them. So that's how we're doing this dabbing motion all the way up to the edges. And if you did our starfish painting with us, it's sort of a similar technique to that, just without the floating medium. You can see I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just literally, I don't want to say globbing because that doesn't sound very fancy, but I really am I'm just laying the paint on there. I'm just slapping paint onto the canvas because we just want there to be a good bit, you know, not crazy. You can see if you can see kind of how much paint I have on there. You see there's a good bit, just enough so we can cover it up. We want to have a good bit of paint on there.
It almost creates a texture, and you're not adding water. Some people have questions. It's just paint straight out of the bottle for this.
Right. I very rarely add water to my paint. The only reason I did it in the beginning is because I was doing that sort of like sketching sort of technique. And so I just wanted a really light, fluid consistency for that sort of like drawing that we're doing. I keep putting it in quotes because, of course, we're not really drawing, we're painting. But otherwise, I very, very rarely add water to my paint. And if I do, I will absolutely tell you. If I just assume that I'm not adding water ever because I very rarely do that. Okay, so I've got my brown in there. And so I'm not going to put my brush in the water. I'm just going to wipe it off onto my paper towel. I'm not going to clean it off completely. And then I'm going to add some, we're going to add 3 colors to our palette right now because we're going to use them all pretty quickly. So I'm going to put my yellow that I have. I'm going to do a little dab of that, about a dime-sized amount, yellow. And then I'm going to put pumpkin, which of course is my orange color, a little dollop of that. And then my navy blue. So for this one, we're going a little bit quick because we need our paint to stay wet. But don't worry, we're going to repeat this step up here. So if you're confused, don't worry, we're about to do it again. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to pick up some of our pumpkin orange. So again, don't forget I didn't clean off my brush. I still have the brown on it. And I just picked up a little bit of the pumpkin orange. And we are going to do the same dabbing motion, but we're going to create sort of a ring in the center of our sunflower. Because if you think of a sunflower, it sort of has like a peak and then it dips down into the middle. It's sort of got like, if that makes sense, it's sort of like, it like goes up and then down into the center. So that's sort of the texture and the shape that we're trying to create. We want to make sure we give it dimension. So here, I'll show you what I need. I've got my, just adding a little bit of paint. I've got my pure orange. I'm just going to dab it in a ring and pick up more as I need it in the center of this flower. You can see, you can hardly see it. And the reason you can hardly see it is because it's blending into the paint. Our paint beneath it is still so wet because we did this step a little bit quick. Because we wanted the paint to stay wet, because we wanted it to be really subtle. We didn't want like a big bright orange ring there. That wouldn't have made sense. We just want that really subtle sort of blending, that sort of hint of orange in there to start creating dimension. Add a little bit more, and I'm just dabbing it in. And if you wanted to, you could use like an extender or like a floating medium to do this, but if you work quickly, you shouldn't need it. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off. And I'm going to pick up, again, I didn't put it in the water, I just wiped it off. But if you did put it in the water, don't stress, that's fine. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my yellow color, and I'm just going to do a little bit of this one right on top of where I put the orange. Just a little bit of highlights here and there, just to make it a little bit brighter. Oops, that was too much. I don't like how much bright was there, so I'm going to try to blend it in a little. Just a little bit. I'm just hardly touching it in there. And I'm gonna wipe my brush off again. I'm gonna try to get that yellow out. And then the third part of this is we're gonna pick up our navy. I know we're going quick, guys, I'm sorry. I'll make sure to repeat this when we're done, but I need my paint to stay wet for this. I'm picking up a little bit of navy, and we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna dab it right into the center of our flower. We're gonna dab it and try to blend it into that brown. Just very softly. You don't want a ton of it, just enough to blend it in there. And if you feel like you've got a little too much color, if you feel like you lost that brown and it's kind of turning into like a rainbow flower center, feel free to pick up a little brown and then just sort of soften it and blend it back in. Pick up a little bit of coffee bean is what we used, and just sort of soften the areas that you feel like maybe got a little bit too bright with your colors. And you can see there that that sort of creates that dimension that we were talking about. It looks like this part is higher than the center part. Looks like it kind of goes up and then peaks down in the middle, just like a real sunflower center does. So for those of you who are caught up, we're going to do the exact same thing up here, but of course it's only going to be a little corner of it. And for those of you who maybe are not caught up and we're still working on that, this will be a little refresher because I'm going to show you how to do it again right up here. It's going to be the exact same technique. I'm still not wiping my brush off. I'm still just gonna, or I'm sorry, I'm still not putting it in water. I'm just wiping it off. Paper towel. So again, I've got my number 8 flat brush, which is just a small flat brush. If you have like a 1/2 inch brush or like a 1/4 inch brush, that's fine. That'll totally work. I'm gonna pick up some coffee bean, which is my dark brown color, and I'm gonna apply it to the center of the flower in a dabbing motion. And I'm putting a good bit of paint on there because you want to have that thick textured wet paint to blend our colors into. Again, I'm just dabbing it. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just really like slapping paint onto the canvas. I'm going right up to the edge. Just covering that little area where the flower center is. So it's really wet. I'll try to show you again. I've got a good bit of paint on there. And I didn't add any water, it's just straight paint. Give you a second for those of you who are just doing this technique for the first time right now, in case you weren't caught up. Any questions, Kira?
No, I think people are just painting.
Awesome.
I can see everybody painting. Their heads are down.
Okay, good.
Somebody had a question about the sides of the canvas.
Yeah. If you can decide the canvas, for my original one, I just ended up painting them all navy.
Yep.
You can see, and I did it just afterwards, but if you wanted to, you could like continue your like petals and centers onto the side, if that's what you're wondering. You can totally continue the brown onto the edges. That'd be pretty cool. It looks like your flowers are wrapped around the whole canvas, but I just painted my edges navy. Totally your call. So yeah, it should be completely covered in brown. If yours is looking transparent, you may just need to put more paint. So
yep, that was the question too.
Yeah, I just saw that one pop up. So if you're using the FolkArt, it shouldn't be an issue because the FolkArt has like such complete coverage. But if you're using a paint that's maybe a little more transparent, maybe just put some more paint in, or maybe you could even like add a little bit of black to it might help just to make it a little bit richer. Just a tiny bit of black. You don't want it to be super dark, but just to sort of make it, just to sort of boost that coverage. So my paint's still wet. Again, I just dabbed the coffee bean on it.
Coffee bean.
Yes, thank you, Kira. Coffee bean. I'm like chocolate, cocoa. What is this color? Coffee bean.
I'm earning my keep. I have my list in front of me.
Cheat sheet.
Yep.
Okay, so now I've got my brush. I didn't put it in the water yet. I just wiped it on my paper towel, still using my number 8 flat brush. I'm gonna pick up a tiny bit of pumpkin, which is my orange color, and I'm gonna do sort of a ring in the center. So for this one, we did the ring all the way around, of course, because it was the full circle. So for this one, it'll just be a little part of the ring. So now I'm just gonna dab it into the brown paint. And it's not gonna show up, and you might be like, oh, well, I can't even see the orange. What's the point of this? But it's gonna be very subtle, and it's gonna help us create dimension. We don't want it to be orange. We just want it to be blended in with the brown. So you can see there, you can hardly see it even, but there is a very subtle little area there that is orange. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wipe my brush off, just wiping it on paper towel. So once you've done that, you're gonna pick up your yellow color and you're just gonna dab even less of that onto there, right on top of the orange. You want hardly any yellow paint on your brush. And you're gonna dab that very softly into the orange. And of course, the yellow is really bright, can be pretty overpowering. So if you feel like maybe you just put too much yellow and you've got like a big yellow ring on it, you can go ahead and pick up some more of your coffee bean and just sort of gently blend it in a little bit more, just to sort of make it a little more subtle. Again, that was yellow that we just added, and we put it straight on top of our orange color. So I'm gonna wipe my brush off with my paper towel, and I'm gonna pick up some of my navy blue. And we're doing the same technique we just did the past couple steps, and you can just see a little bit of the flower where we can imagine that the center would be. We can kind of imagine the circle going off the canvas. We're just gonna dab our navy blue into the center of that, just to give it some darkness in the center. And again, it'll hopefully look like it goes up and then dips down into the middle and gives it that dimension. So that's it for our flower centers. So if you haven't yet, you can go ahead and rinse your brush off in your water basin.
So while people are finishing up, somebody had a question. Is there a reason you don't clean your brush during this part?
Yeah, so you don't want to add water for that part. You want to keep it really thick and textured. And when you put your brush in the water, there's a good chance you're not drying it off completely, just because, you know, the brushes are so dense, there's going to be water trapped in there. So we don't want to get water into our paint, because I know some people had problems with the brown staying sort of transparent, and that's going to be an even bigger problem if your brush has water in it. Because anytime you add water to acrylic paint, it just waters it down, and it's just going to take away from the opacity and from the pigment. So I try to avoid adding water unless I'm trying to do something like really flowy or like a wash or something like that where I want it to be transparent. So I know you guys might be painting the center of your flowers, but for those of you who aren't, this next step is going to take a while, so I'm going to get you started so you guys can start working. Literally, all we're going to do for this next step is paint flat yellow on all of the flower petals. So those of you who are waiting, who have finished your centers, we're just going to paint flat yellow, and we're going to go right up to the edges. We're not going to paint over our lines because you want to see where those are. But we're just going to do it just sort of coloring book style. We're just going to paint inside the lines using a small flat brush, or you could even use your large flat brush, whatever you feel like is working better for you. Any flat is fine. We're just going to use our yellow color to paint in our flower petals. So for those of you who are caught up, feel free to start painting in. We're going to paint in all of them, all the flower petals, right up to the line, but don't cover up your lines. So you guys can start working on that. And I'll start doing it nice and slow so people can catch up.
That's a number 8 flat brush.
Yep, I'm using my number 8. Totally, yeah. And nothing fancy. We're just gonna paint some or just flat yellow color on here right now. And then we're gonna add lots of dimension and shading and dry brushing on top of it to give us lots of details and texture onto our flower petals. Right now, we're just trying to lay some color down. Like I said, sort of coloring book style.
Yeah, this one's fun to watch it come to life.
Yeah, it is. This looks really flat, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it looks like a flower.
Ta-da!
Yeah, exactly. In case you guys are wondering, the reason that we sort of did the full centers of the flower first with all the details is because when we paint, you know, of course, the petals grow out of the center. So we want it to sort of overlap there, as you can see. So it sort of gives that idea that the petals are growing out from that. We want the petals to go over it a little bit. So that gives us the opportunity to do that. We painted this one first, and now we can paint our petals a little bit on top of it, just in case you're wondering about that. So I'm going to go right up to the brown. We're just going to go a little bit over the brown. And you can see I'm getting a little bit of brown in my paint. In case you can't see, I'll tell you, I am getting a little bit of brown in my paint down here. But don't worry about it at all, because we're going to add lots of colors and lots of darkness and shadows into it. So don't worry. We just want to get a nice flat coat of yellow onto our canvas. When we're done, we don't want to see any white canvas except for the 2 areas where there's background. It's sort of a fun part. You can just sort of turn your brain off and relax and just paint in the lines. And again, if you've got like a really, if you've got like a lighter yellow that maybe has like a little bit of white to it and it's a little more opaque, make sure that you're not painting over your lines that we drew, because you do want to see where those lines are. Mine's pretty transparent because it's a pretty bright yellow, so I can see it regardless, but just make sure you're not painting over those lines. Add a little bit more of my yellow to my palette because I only had a little to begin with.
So while you're filling in and people are painting, there's some questions about, is there any tip or technique of how to hold your brush?
Yeah, sure. So one big tip that I would give you is not to hold your brush too tight. I have a very loose grip on this. If somebody were to come and knock my hand, my brush would fly out of it completely. I'm barely holding on to this brush. You don't want to hold it like a pencil. You don't want to go like that. It's going to be very hard to control the pressure that you're putting on your brush, because that has a lot to do with it when you're painting. So you can have a nice even pressure. You can use the bristles to your advantage. I usually hold it towards the middle to the end, depending on how long your brush is. So these are pretty short brushes, so I usually end up holding it towards the end like this, as you can see. But if I had one of those really long painting brushes, I might hold it more towards the center. And like I said, the most important thing is don't have like a vice grip on it. You don't need to have that tight of a hold on it, because makes it harder for you to paint straight lines, especially if you've got a really tight grip on it. It feels like it's going to help you paint straighter lines, but it's really not, because if you're concentrating, that's when your hand's going to start shaking. So if you have a really light grip, you can just do sort of fluid motions. And you can see I'm also painting, just while I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to paint mostly in one direction. That always helps. Instead of painting like over here and over here and over here, all in different crazy directions, that's not what we're going for right now. We just want a nice smooth coat of yellow. So I am trying to just keep it going in the same direction. Just pick a direction and go with it. It doesn't matter what direction. And again, we're just painting in the background, so hopefully everybody's able to catch up during this part, because it really is just filling in, laying down color. I usually like to and when I was in school, when they were teaching us how to paint, they called this blocking in color. So we're just blocking in the colors right now, and then we really start focusing in on like the exact correct color that we want to paint. So right now we're just blocking in the color. We're just getting some color onto the canvas so we can add those beautiful details and shading and highlights and shadows and all that on top of it. We don't have to worry about getting full coverage because it's already covered in this beautiful yellow. And again, I'm using my number 8 flat brush. And we're just using the bright yellow color that we have. I think the one I have is just called yellow tonight, but whatever bright yellow color you have is totally fine. Any more questions, Kira?
No, somebody had a question if their petal was too long, and I told them just don't fill it in, make it the size you want with the yellow, and you can always cover it up with a background or another petal.
Absolutely.
And we're going to paint another layer on the petals. Is it okay if you can see the canvas through the petals? So if you can see the canvas, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about that right now.
Dry brushing and layering.
Totally.
And sometimes yellow is tricky.
It is. Like we talk about like pigments a lot, just pigments in general. Of course, all paints are made with, it takes different sort of ingredients to make the different colors. And just the yellow pigment, just naturally, no matter what kind of paint you're using, is always going to be a little bit more transparent than other colors. The brighter colors are always a little more transparent. So it just sometimes takes a couple of coats if you're using like yellow or red or orange. Whereas if you're doing like a blue or something like that, you might not need as many coats.
Yeah. Everybody just says you are making it look so easy and you are a great teacher.
Oh, thanks guys.
Oh.
Awesome. Hopefully all of your paintings are looking beautiful. I'm sure they are. Don't forget, I'm up on my top flower now. Don't forget I'm going up over the brown just a little bit, just sort of roughly. Don't forget to go over that though, and I am getting these little areas in between. And I'm making sure not to cover up my lines.
And it's okay if some of the petals are not all the same length. I mean, it's a flower, it's organic. I think that's totally fine. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter, and that kind of gives it some depth and personality. So don't worry about it.
I agree completely. It's nature, so nothing in nature is ever completely perfect. And that's kind of what makes it perfect, honestly. I know that sounds like super corny, but that's kind of the beauty of it. Like Kira said, it's organic. So however you make it, I'm sure there's a flower out there in the world somewhere that looks just like the flower you're painting.
Yeah. And again, that's the beauty of paint too, right? That's my favorite medium because you can just paint over it. You let it dry, hit it with a hair dryer. You can go in and paint right over top of it or touch it up and you would never know.
Right, and that's so about acrylic paints especially, yeah. Acrylic paints dry so quickly, and so it's so easy to fix any sort of miss brushes that you might do. I don't want to say mistakes because there's no mistakes, but everything is super fixable. But anything that you aren't happy with, it's super easy to fix.
And so everybody is asking about your wedding. So Jessie is now married.
You guys, I can't believe y'all remembered that. Yes, I got married this past weekend. Thank you. Very happy. And I'm very tired. But it was awesome. Yeah. 4th of July wedding with just our immediate family. My family owns a restaurant, so we just had it in our little private restaurant. We closed it down. It was just us, and it was perfect.
Okay.
It wasn't quite what we had planned, of course, but I think these days a lot of people's big plans are changing, so we just had to go with the flow, and that's okay.
You're quite a trooper, you guys. She stayed home. She worked from home today and came in just for this class tonight after getting married like less than 48 hours ago.
I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss it. When I was leaving, my husband, which is so weird, I was like, bye, see you later. He was like, bye, wife. I was like, oh, that was weird. Still very fresh. But I wouldn't miss it. I love these paint nights with you guys, so I was looking forward to it. It's part of the fun. Okay, so do we feel like people are sort of catching up with the yellow, Kira? What do you think?
Yeah, everyone's just really happy for you and saying congrats. I don't think anybody cares about the painting right now.
Oh,
Someone made a comment on your nails. They're like, that's not a typical artist hand and manicure.
I know, I still have my fancy wedding nails. They're kind of like too fancy for painting. It's true. They don't usually look like this, I promise. They're usually barely painted. Thank you guys. You all are very sweet. I see all of your congrats comments. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, usually when we have paint on our color on our nails, it's from paint, not from nail polish.
Yes, exactly. No need to paint your nails. It just gets painted along the way anyway.
I went home from the shibori with blue dye on my neck the other night. Okay, whatever.
Classic. I can't tell you how many times I've been painting here because, of course, I'm a content creator here. So all I do all day is paint, whether it's making paintings on canvas or I'm doing some sort of other craft project. I'll leave lunch and I'll come back and, you know, go through the restroom on my way back and there's like blue smeared on my forehead. And I'm like, nobody felt the need to tell me that before I went to lunch. Thanks, guys. We're just all so used to it. We don't even tell each other anymore. We're like, yeah, there's blue on your forehead. That's normal. You know, my nails, I just shot today. Okay. So hopefully you guys are catching up. Hopefully you guys are sort of finishing up your petals here. We are going to start adding some texture and some dimension to our petals. So I left my brush in the water, which I don't recommend. Do as I say, not as I do. I usually don't leave my brushes in the water, but you guys distract me with all of your sweet comments. So clean off your number 8 flat. And we're going to make sure we get it nice and dry. You never want to have a ton of water in your brush. More off there. Nice and dry. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is hopefully you still have some of your yellow and orange colors on your palette. And if you don't, go ahead and add just a little bit more of those now. So I still have some in my palette, that's why I'm not adding any more. And I've got my, we're pretty much going to be using this number 8 flat brush for the rest of the painting. So if you have like a 1/2 inch flat or whatever it is that you're using at home, we're pretty much going to hang on to this guy for until all the way through the end. I don't think we're going to use any other brushes anymore. So just hang on to this guy. I just cleaned it and I dried it as best I could on my paper towels. So I want to see it pretty dry. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up some of my yellow color. See, hopefully you guys can see my palette here. And I'm going to pick up some of my orange color and I'm going to mix them together just on my palette. And I'm going to get this pretty light sort of tangerine-y color. Kind of almost peachy a little bit. So you just mix it a little bit. It doesn't need to be super combined because we're going to be doing a lot of blending on our canvas. So again, I'm using my number 8 flat brush and I'm using my yellow and my orange. And I just mixed about 1 to 1, maybe a little bit more yellow, but it was a pretty even ratio. And I got this pretty sort of tangerine color. Okay, so what we're going to do for this is we're going to start creating some of the dimension on our petals. And we're going to start doing the bases of the petals to start sort of building up some of that shading. So here, this is what we're going to do. I'll show you how. I'm going to start at the base of the petals. We'll start with this guy right here. And I'm just going to just gently, again, we talked about how I'm hardly putting, I'm holding my brush very loosely. And I'm going to use a pull-up motion because I am right-handed. So it's more comfortable for me to pull from left to right. But if you're left-handed, I might recommend that you turn your painting this way and pull from right to left because that might be more comfortable for you. So for me, like I said, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to pull from left to right. And I'm just going to sort of blend it from the bottom up. So I'm going to start at the bottom and just very gently, I'm just like sort of sweeping the canvas with my brush. I'm barely touching it. I'm just sort of feathering the paint going up. So hopefully you can see that. I'm barely, you can see how I'm holding my brush. I'm barely touching the canvas. I'm just adding a little bit of paint. And you can see it starts to sort of create almost like a little bit of an ombre effect. It just sort of creates that sort of shading. And I really haven't even combined my colors completely because they're going to get added or they're going to combine on the canvas anyway. So I'm going to keep doing that in all these petals. Again, I'm just like barely touching the canvas and I'm just pulling from the center out on my petals. And again, I just mixed my orange and yellow paints, just about a 1 to 1 ratio. And I'm starting at the center and ever so gently pulling out, starting at the center of each petal and pulling outwards. You don't need a ton of paint for this part. Again, my number 8 flat, and I just mixed some orange and yellow, just 1-to-1 ratio. Just got this nice tangerine color, like a really pale orange. And I'm just gonna keep doing this in all of my petals. And again, we're gonna keep adding tons of layers to this, so if it's not perfect, or if like another color is blending into it and it's not looking good to you, don't worry about it, because we're gonna keep just layering up these colors.
Yeah, so some people have questions if their brown is bleeding into their yellow or the yellow's still wet. That's totally fine.
Yeah, totally fine. If the brown is bleeding into your yellow, you're probably just getting a darker shadow, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. I think it probably looks kind of good if I had to guess. And if the yellow is so wet beneath, you're just going to be blending them together. So if you are running into the problem where you're picking back the yellow back up, that is a little bit of a problem. So you might want to just hang on a minute and wait for your yellow to dry a little bit more. Or if you have like a hair dryer, just hit it with a hair dryer real quick. Because sometimes when you have like paint that's been sitting for a little while, but it's not completely dry, and you try to paint over it, it just wants to wipe right back up off your canvas. So you might, if you're having that problem, maybe just hang on for just a minute while it dries. Because look, see, I just did mine, and mine's all dry already. I got a little bit there, but that was already there. So it won't take long to dry. So maybe just hang on a minute and wait for that to dry.
And someone asked if the color they mixed is too dark. Can they just go back in, make a little bit lighter, and then kind of blend that together while it's still wet?
100%, go right back over it. Or you might not even need to mix a new color. If you put it on here and it's too dark, it's too orange, just pick up some yellow and go right back over it and just blend it, and it'll just lighten it right up. Here, I'll show you. So this, say I want to lighten this one, I'm just going to pick up some yellow and do the same thing. And look how much lighter it gets. Do the same thing right over it. See how much lighter it's getting already? Yeah, don't worry about that at all. Okay, so I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna do it on my flower up here, again, starting at the base and then pulling out. And I might turn my canvas again, just because I'm right-handed. So I'm gonna pull from left to right. So sorry guys, I turned my canvas. Hopefully nobody got confused. Just easier, more comfortable for me to pull this way than trying to pull down diagonally. That's not as comfortable for my hand. So again, we're just doing the exact same technique. I'm mixing my yellow, 1 part yellow, 1 part orange. I didn't add any water. And just ever so gently pulling from the base, just really lightly, like light as a feather. I'm just sort of doing almost a flicking motion. How's everybody doing with this part?
Somebody has a question if you're only doing this on the front petals and not the petals behind that are layered.
Good question. I am focusing on the front petals right now. We will be adding some shading and some shadows to the petals that are beneath, but right now I'm just focusing on the front petals. So just really quick. I know it's for some beginner painters it's hard to go quick because you just want to really focus and you want to get it perfect. But sometimes you really just do get a better result when you go quick. Sometimes going quick is part of the technique. It's better if you go quick instead of concentrating too hard. Okay, so if you didn't do it exactly like mine, don't worry. We're going to be adding lots of paint and doing lots of shading and highlighting to it, so don't stress. And I'm just cleaning off my brush right now because I finished adding that light orange to my front petals. I'm just gonna wait, hang on a second while people catch up.
Well, I love Pam has a question. Are we doing anything wintry for Christmas in July?
Oh, that's a great idea. I don't know if we are. Sometimes we've done Christmas in July on our plaid channels for sure.
Yeah, with our Bucilla. We actually have another floral next week. And then, because I know that one is up, and then we're gonna change it up and do some different animals. I think we have some fun stuff coming up.
Yeah, we have some really bright, fun, colorful animals coming up. So keep an eye out for those. Those are really fun. Yeah, next week, like Kira said, we're doing another floral. I'm going to be on my honeymoon, but it's going to be my really, really good friend, Kirsten. So she's going to come and she's going to show you guys sort of a new technique. So make sure you tune in for that because she's a really, really awesome teacher and she's been doing this for a long time. So make sure you tune in. And then I'll be back the next week. Okay, so hopefully you guys are catching up. Again, I'm sticking with my number 8 flat brush, my little flat brush, and I washed them off. And I make sure I get as much water out of it as I can. So we are going to pick up some yellow, some of our yellow color with our brush. And we're gonna pick up just the teeniest amount of navy blue. So here, just watch how much I put. I'm just gonna sort of dunk the corner of my brush into it because I really don't want those together. And we're gonna get sort of a green, like citron color. It's like a very yellowy citron. Yellow green. You definitely want it to be more yellow than green. You want it to be pretty light. If you've got, if you feel like you put too much blue and you're getting like a true green, make sure you just go ahead and add some more yellow. So again, I'm using my number 8 flat brush. And I just mixed some yellow with a tiny, tiny touch of blue. Okay, so now we're gonna do a really similar technique. So for the person who said that they already started painting their back petals, we're gonna do those now. So don't worry about it, we're just gonna paint right on top of it. And don't stress, you can just paint right on top of the orange that you've already done. So these petals that are in between, we're gonna start doing the same technique we did with this light orange on those petals. And so of course, those areas are much smaller than these big wide areas that we just did. So you may need to turn your brush sideways. So sort of use the chiseled edge of your brush to flick it up, if that makes sense. And so you're not going to do it flat because then it's going to be too wide for that area. You might need to turn your brush sideways. So we're going to do the same thing, really lightly, just sort of blending. We're sort of dry brush at this point because our paint beneath it is so dry, we're not blending it into that yellow anymore. Doing the same thing for these underneath petals. And at this point, we can start sort of covering up these brown lines that we painted. So you can start focusing on that and going over those a little bit. We can start covering those guys. We don't want to see the lines in our painting because of course, if you look at we don't want it to look like a coloring book. We don't want it to look like a cartoon. We're trying to go for more of a realistic flower. So with our final painting, we want to make sure those lines are not seen anymore. So I'm just sort of focusing on the lines. And again, just doing that little swiping motion, just the little flicking motion like we were doing, holding my brush upright, using the flat edge to paint these back petals. And you can go kind of far up with this one. You might go up a little bit further than you did with the orange. And that's because we want to make sure we start covering up those lines. Can you kind of see what I'm doing there? I'm focusing on these raw sienna lines. So that's why I'm sort of going up a little further on the edges of my petals. And then just sort of filling it in a little bit in the middle. Hopefully you guys can see how I did that. I'm sort of focusing on those lines. I want to get those covered. And then just really gently and lightly in the middle. Any questions?
I think people are just painting along.
Awesome. And feel free to mix more of this little like citron green color if you need to. I'm gonna mix a little bit more, I think. I'm running out. Again, it was just yellow with a tiny touch of navy blue. I don't think I've said that yet tonight, but whenever you mix paint on your palette using your brush, if you're not using like a palette knife or something, I usually just use my brush because I hate to say that I'm a lazy painter, but I often don't have a palette knife with me, so I just mix with my brush. But never mix with your brush and then go straight onto your canvas, because when you have like a brush that's sopping wet with paint, it's really hard to control where your paint goes, and you want to make sure you always have control over your brush. So when you mix it on your palette, you want to make sure that you wipe off any excess before you start painting on your canvas. Just a little tip. So I'm going to do these behind petals up here as well. Again, I'm trying to get rid of those lines. You can see my lines aren't going away completely. I haven't gotten rid of the tops yet. Don't worry, we're still adding more color. Just kind of starting to get rid of those lines. When I was learning to draw and paint in college, you really weren't supposed to have any lines in your drawings, because you're supposed to only be drawing the light, which I know sounds so confusing and so hard. And it was, but once you get sort of practice, it makes sense. So if you were drawing a person or something, you're supposed to be drawing the shadows and the colors and things like that. And you're not drawing, you know, outlines, because if you look at something, it doesn't really have an outline. In our mind, we make it have an outline because that's the way we want to paint it and we want to draw it. But that's why we want to make sure we get rid of anything like that in our painting, because it helps it make it a little more realistic when we're finished. So now you can kind of see we have our front flower. That's looking pretty good. We've got our back flower, that's looking pretty good. But the problem is they're looking the exact same. And that's not what we want, because we want this flower to look like he's behind this flower. I don't know why I made him a he, but I just did. We want this flower to look like it's behind this flower. And so we need to add a little bit of darkness to this flower to make him look like he's further back. So how we're going to do that is we're going to mix some yellow with navy blue. But this time we're going to add a little bit more navy blue than we did. So we have our yellow color and we're putting a little bit of navy blue in it. So I've got sort of like a darker citron-y color. Again, you don't want it like super dark. You don't want it to be like a true green color. We're kind of going for this color here, if you can see. So you can see on my palette there. And what we're going to do with that is we are going to start doing a very similar technique to what we've been doing. So we've all kind of become pros at the whole like swishing, blending, lightly sort of motion. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it behind these petals on these petals. So if that confuses you at all, just watch me do the first one, and I think it'll make sense. We're trying to make a shadow on these petals coming from this flower, because if the light's coming down on it, then this guy's going to be in a little bit of shadow. So again, I just mixed some yellow with some navy blue, but I added a little bit more navy blue than I did for the last color we mixed. And I'm going to start making some shadows. So here, watch what I do. Same technique. I'm going to start here and start blending it in that way. Blending it in from behind these flower petals. And it's looking kind of dark, but don't worry, we're going to blend it in. We want to make this flower look like he's further away than our front flower. And here's another great opportunity to start covering up those lines. This is
People are worried about the lines, Jessie, but I'm just telling everybody, I'm chatting back and just saying it's okay if the lines are still showing.
Yeah. The lines on mine are still showing too. Don't worry. We're just sort of gradually covering them up as we get darker As we start painting darker shadows, we're going to start making sure we really pay attention to those lines and start covering them up. So right now, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, you can even see them in your finished one, and they totally kind of go away once you're all done doing all your blending and your dry brush technique.
Exactly. They sort of blend in, like Kira said. They sort of just sort of fade into the rest of the painting because we have so many different colors going on that's just, and looks like another shade of color. So don't worry about it. So I'm going to mix some more because I ran out of that color. Yellow with a little bit of blue. Take this greenish color. Again, I'm going to wipe off the excess. And I'm going to just do that same technique we've been doing for this back flower. And we're going to go right from where these top petals end. So it looks like it's behind it. So whenever you're painting something, you want something to look like it's more distant, you can just make it a little bit darker, and that usually does the trick. Or you can make it look a little bit blurry or softer. There's lots of different ways to make it, to change the perspective of things in your painting. We're gonna put a little on this guy too, just to make him look darker as well. And again, this is a great opportunity to, wherever you're painting near one of those burnt sienna lines, to just go ahead and get right over it this time, as opposed to going right up to it. And again, you can see I'm being really loose with it. Not perfect. Is everybody doing okay with this step?
Yep, I think people, it's looking a little gray on their yellow, but that's okay.
If it's looking a little gray on your yellow, let it dry for a minute and you can add a little bit yellow back on it. We're actually about to do that. So don't worry. So this is for you, whoever said that yours is looking gray. Mine's looking really intense and dark, and it's not looking blended at all, right? For those of you who are like, wow, her painting doesn't look good. She's supposed to be teaching us. We're about to blend it, so don't worry. We wanted to get that darkness in, and then we're going to sort of blend it into the middle. So you can see I didn't put my brush in water. I still have some green on it. I'm just going to wipe off the excess, and I'm going to pick up some yellow, just a little bit, and I'm going to do the same sort of blending motion right on the edges. And we're just going to blend those in. We're going to blend in that green color. You can see I have such a light hold on my brush. We're just blending it in.
So some people just have some questioning about the shading. So it's a very light touch, and you're going back in and adding your yellow to blend it. So I think some people are getting frustrated.
Okay, so don't get frustrated. First step, take a deep breath. Don't get frustrated. If you feel like you're making a mess of it, if you are feeling super frustrated about it, and you feel like your paint is just wet and you're getting too much paint on there, truly let it dry. Go to your bedroom, go to your bathroom, grab your hair dryer, hit it with the hair dryer, and sort of start fresh on top of it, okay? So sort of start fresh, do your little dark layer, and then do your yellow layer. Oftentimes, especially for beginner painters, I don't know if you're a beginner or if you just haven't painted this way or if you're just frustrated with this painting, any of those is fine. It's hard to do blending with wet paint just because you're not used to the motion. So that's why we're doing it sort of dry on top of this light yellow, or on top of the base coat of yellow that we did, because hopefully it'll be a little bit simpler. I hardly have any paint on my brush. Hopefully you can, here, let's see if you can kind of see there. There's like barely any paint on this brush. I might even wipe some off. I'm just sort of like feathering paint right into the center to blend it. But don't get frustrated, whatever you do, because that's not fun. I'm positive it looks better than you think it does. We always joke here, whenever we do a painting, we don't like it, we come back the next day and it always looks way better.
Sleep on it.
Exactly, sleep on it. I promise you that it probably looks better than you think it does. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start adding some more navy blue to these really far petals. So we've got our front flower and our flower behind it. And then these these petals in between are the furthest thing in the distance in this painting, right? Because we've got our front petals, our next in line, these petals, and then these guys are the furthest away from our eye when we're looking at these flowers. So we want to go ahead and wipe our brush off and get some navy blue. And look, I have the teeniest bit of navy blue on my brush. Can you see how much navy blue I have on my brush? Barely any. And we're going to use that and we're going to blend it into these back petals. So I'm going to show you again. I have no water and barely any navy blue on my brush. And I'm blending it into these very back petals to make those look like they're even further away. And again, I barely have any paint. I'm sort of dry brushing it right now. I just want to add some darkness to make those look super far away. And if you got a little bit and you're like, oh gosh, that was way too much navy, just wipe your brush off, pick up some yellow, and go right back over it. Hardly any yellow. You can see, look how much yellow I have on my brush. I'm hardly using any paint. I think a lot of people just tend to want to like put tons of paint on their canvas. They just are like scooping and painting. And you really don't need that much paint to get these effects. So just hardly any navy. I'm going to make this guy look like he's further away. Really loose hold on my brush. Adding some navy in there. I might blend it in with a little bit of yellow. I want them to look far away, so. So wherever you want it to look further away, you add navy, and then whenever you want it to look like it's closer to you, you can just add a little bit of yellow. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do, you guys can continue doing that, continue working on that. We're gonna add a little bit of detail around the base of our flower, or our petals, sorry. So I'm gonna pick up, I still haven't put my brush in water because I don't really need to as we're doing so much blending and we have all these colors sort of mixing together on the canvas. I'm gonna pick up some navy blue. You can see I have about, should start showing you guys how much I have on my brush. I think that might be helpful to you. So I have about that much navy blue on my brush. And I'm going to go, and between each petal, I'm gonna make sort of a V shape, and that's just really gonna make them pop. Can you see sort of the darkness here around the center of the flower, how it sort of makes them like pop? So here, I'll show you how I did that. I'm gonna go between each one and make a V, oh, I need a little more paint, it dried while I was talking. Make a V shape like that. So here, you can't see it on my canvas, so I'll show you on my palette. I did a shape, like, oops, like that. Just a little upside down V. And I'm using navy blue. And I'm using this number 8 flat brush. We're using this guy till the end. So I just did this little, just really loose, quick little V, upside down V. So between each of our front petals, you know, sort of overlapping the petals and the brown part of our flower, we're gonna do these little V's. And that's just gonna sort of make that our little, where the flowers are separated, it's gonna make them pop a little bit and give it a little bit of detail. These little V's, just teeny tiny. You can kind of almost hardly see them against the brown, and that's kind of what we're going for. We want it to be kind of subtle. This is our navy blue, which really does look pretty with the brown. So this down here is going to be an actual V. It's not upside down because of course I'm going all the way around. Hopefully you can see. Do you see how that created some more texture down there? And then if you're feeling daring, you can even just sort of continue it up a little, like a little more drama. Just teeny tiny little strokes I'm adding. Just to create some more darkness in between those petals. I'm like barely touching the canvas and I barely have any paint. You can see it looks like I have a lot of paint, but my brush is so dry. I hardly have any paint on here. I'm just sort of dragging my brush teeny tiny bit up the sides, and that just creates sort of a little bit more dimension down there. And then you can do the same thing for this one up here. Do the same thing, make our little V's. So the point of the V should be facing the center of the flower. So in case you're getting confused, because I almost just got confused myself. I'm like, which way does my V go? The point, oh, I'm wrong. The point of the V should be facing the petals of the flower. Do as I say, not as I do. So you can see I didn't even do it the same way as that one, but it looks okay. There's no such thing as a mistake when you're painting. It's still, you still get the same effect. And I'm gonna do my little lines going up just for a little bit more dimension, a little bit more detail. And that just really makes those flower petals pop. So hopefully your guys' painting is looking something like this. How's it going, Kira?
I think everybody's just painting. Yeah, people are, no questions. People are just painting.
Okay, awesome.
Looks so good, looking better. I think it's starting to come together for some people.
Good, good, I'm glad.
Asking about the background, so you'll get to the background when you're done with the flowers. The background on the side.
And yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, well I'm glad that you guys don't have too many questions. Hopefully that means that you're getting the hang of it.
Someone said it's so hard, but so fun. I love that comment.
Well, that's good. Sometimes it's fun to have a challenge, you know? It's nice to have relaxing, but it's fun to have a little challenge for your Monday night too. I'm glad you're still having fun, even though it's a little bit harder for you. The more you do it, the easier it will get.
Yeah, so that's what's so great is that if you want to go back and watch this video or any of Jesse's other Let's Paint live paintings on michaels.com, and I put the link in, I can put it in again, but it's right on their community classroom page, and you can go ahead and watch this on demand if you want to paint this again. So say this was your practice and you want to go ahead and try it again, or you want to go back and, you know, again, let your painting dry and get up in the morning and take a look at it. You can always go back and tweak it and add more paint or change it up a little bit.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, this painting turned out terrible. I don't care for this at all. And then I go home from work and I come back in the morning and I'm like, you know what, actually that's pretty good. So definitely sleep on it. You're your own worst critic, that is for sure.
Everything that I see posted in our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group looks amazing after.
It's true, it's true. Everybody does such a good job on these. You guys are way more talented than you give yourselves credit for, I'm sure of it.
Yes.
All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start painting the background. You were right, the person who asked about that. We're gonna start painting the background using navy blue. So I'm gonna put a little bit more on my palette because I'm running out. And all we're gonna do is we're just gonna paint it in right now. We're gonna add a little bit of texture, but just the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just lay down some color like we did with the yellow. And I'm still using my number 8 flat in navy blue, and I'm painting background. And here's another opportunity to cover up our lines. So you can see I've got my brown line here. So I'm just gonna go right up to the yellow. I'm gonna go right over that. Here's another opportunity to do that. When you have a really detailed painting like this, and you start by doing like a line sort of drawing or a line painting first, you just sort of, you can't really cover up the lines right away because of course there's a reason you painted those lines, because you need to see it for the composition of your painting. So you just need to sort of keep an eye out for opportunities to cover up those lines throughout your painting. If we were to just cover them all up with yellow in the beginning, we would have no idea the difference between each petal. So that's why we didn't do that. We're just sort of taking our time to cover up those lines. We want to make sure we could see them up until now. And I'm going to go up here too. Don't forget the top left of it, of your background. And I'm going to cover up these lines as well. Just going to go right up to the yellow. And by now this yellow should be dry. So if you do you know, if you, you know, get a little crazy and your, you know, hand gets a little twitch or something and you get blue on the yellow, it might be kind of hard to cover up. So I would literally just dip your finger in water and wipe it off real quick, provided that your yellow is dry. So that's what that's the easiest way to do it. So if your paint is dry beneath and you get a little mistake, you just dip your finger in it and you just wipe it away. Just like that. And that saves you from having to dry it and go back and cover it with yellow after yellow after yellow, because of course it's going to be really hard to cover up that navy blue with the yellow. Absolutely possible, so don't like stress about it. But just a little tip to save you some time if that does happen. But again, that only works if the paint beneath it is totally dry. Again, I'm just painting in this blue, navy blue in the background. Hopefully it's really coming together for some of you guys. So while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put some of my teal onto my palette. My palette's very messy. Hopefully your palette's a little more organized and neater than mine, but I always have a messy palette. I haven't cleaned my brush off. I still have the navy blue on it. I'm going to wipe some of the excess off. And we're just going to pick up some of our teal and we're going to blend it into that top area. So this paint is still wet, of course. We literally just painted it. But I'm going to blend this tealy, turquoisey color right up there. And if you don't have teal, if you just sort of have the basics with you right now, you can take some of your blue and put a little bit, a tiny bit of yellow and white into it, and you should get something similar. So you could even take your navy blue and put a tiny, just a touch of your yellow and a touch of your white, and hopefully you'll get a color that's kind of similar to it. May not be exactly the same, but it'll definitely give us the effect that we're looking for. And I'm just blending this in really like almost sloppily. I hate to say that, but I'm making it kind of messy and kind of loose. I'm not really doing it in any specific direction. I'm just sort of like loosely, sort of painterly blending it in. You can see I'm kind of like dabbing it. Kind of without rhyme or reason, just dabbing it until I get the effect that I want. Here, it's hard to see because the paint is wet. So we just lightened that a little. We lightened it. It's much lighter than our dark blue down here now. And then I always like to create sort of like gradient backgrounds. I don't know, I think it's always a really fun, interesting background to make, and it's sort of simple and just like a really good way to finish your painting. So I'm gonna take the teal and I'm gonna blend it a little bit on the top of this area too. Just so it looks like behind the flowers, it's like teal and then it turns into the blue. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just gonna blend in a little bit of teal down here too.
Someone's asking if they could even mix in some of the green with the teal and the navy, and I think absolutely, it could almost look like leaves.
Yeah, totally. I love that idea. You could totally paint leaves on these. You could paint leaves in the background, have big green leaves coming out from behind them. That's a great idea.
I do love the teal and the navy though. It really makes it pop.
Yeah, it looks really good against the yellow, I think. So you can see I've kind of got like a stark line happening here with my teal and my navy. So I'm not cleaning my brush off, still have the teal on. I'm going to pick up some navy and I'm going to start blending those two together.
And everyone's asking if we have classes again and when's our next one. So Jesse's been here, for almost 2 months now, Monday nights on Michael's Community Classroom doing all these paintings. So you can check those out. Again, those are all available on michaels.com under the Community Classrooms page. And then Jesse will not be here next Monday, but we will be here as part of Plaid. And Kirsten, our good friend here at Plaid, will be teaching a floral bouquet painting. So,
yeah, it's a really fun technique too. So make sure you're there for that one because it's something that I'm really not even that comfortable doing and not that good at. It's something that I've not done a lot of. So make sure you tune in for her painting because you're going to learn a lot. Yeah,
she's going to be using a palette knife.
Exactly.
So completely different than a brush, the technique.
Yeah. Right.
But yes, so we will be back next Monday.
yeah, make sure you tune in because she's super nice and she's super talented. You won't want to miss it. Okay. So you can see here, I sort of have my blue background. You can see I sort of blended that teal. It kind of looks like the teal is like coming in behind the flowers and turning into that dark blue. And now we're gonna add some final details. So I'm gonna make sure my brush is really clean for this part. And I'm gonna put some of my Wicker white onto my palette. And this is just any white paint is fine. This is like, Plaid's got two whites. We've got titanium white and we've got Wicker white. And titanium white is a very cool white, like a very bright, stark white. And then Wicker white is more of a warmer white. So I just tend to lean towards Wicker white, but really any white acrylic will do for this part. So I'm gonna grab some of my Wicker white and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of my yellow color. I'm gonna mix those and get like a nice pale yellow. Probably about 1-to-1 ratio, 1 part white and 1 part yellow. Maybe a little bit more white. I always change my mind, sorry guys. Oops, I got some blue in there. So I'm gonna make sure my brush is clean because it clearly wasn't as clean as I thought it was. I had some water in there and it was hiding some blue paint. So make sure all of that's out of there. So I've got Wicker white and yellow. We're mixing to get this nice pale yellow. And we are gonna start softening these petals right around the tops, and that's also gonna give us some highlights. So here, I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna take my brush and we're gonna sort of do like a curve motion down the side. And this is even further going to cover up those lines. So of course we talked about how, look, I'm just doing sort of a curved line, just sort of making him look a little softer there. And I'm doing it on both sides. And we're just doing the front petals, I should have mentioned. Only the front petals for this part. We're not doing the back petals. So just really soft. And then feel free to pick up some yellow, just regular old yellow, just plain yellow, and blend it in. And that gives us some highlight, and it makes our petals a little bit softer. So I'm going to do that for each of them. I'm going to add my little highlight and take the opportunity again to cover up. We might have some of those final brown lines there. And be careful not to pick up any blue as I go past my background. I'm going to blend it in with yellow. Make sure I don't forget these these petals that are going off the edge of my canvas. Do these nice curved lines, and this is hopefully going to soften our petals a little bit and make them look a little bit less geometric like they've been looking. And again, cover up those lines. And you can just sort of grab some of our straight yellow out of the bottle and blend that in. Again, I'm going to try hard not to pick up any of that blue. It's not really what I want right for this step. So hopefully that's looking a little bit softer and you've got sort of a nice highlight now on your petals. It's just another layer of dimension. How's everybody doing? Good. Taking no news as good news.
Yep, everybody's painting along.
I figured you were typing some answers.
I am. I'm replying. I'm actually scrolling through watching everybody paint.
Oh, good. That's awesome. It is hard. Whenever Kira does like her pouring videos and lots of different crafting videos that she does for Michael's channels, I moderate for her, and it is really hard. It actually is. You're trying to answer questions. You're trying to read all the questions. You're direct messaging people. People are direct messaging you. You're trying to talk to the person who's crafting. It's a lot.
It's a lot of power.
Okay, so while I have this light pale yellow on my brush, I'm going to put a little bit of highlights up here too. You can see I'm just going to dab it right at the base of these petals at the top, just to create a little bit of a highlight, and I'm going to try to blend those in super softly, barely touching the canvas, just to give it a little bit more of a highlight because, oops, that was a lot of white. Because those were sort of like, we're thinking like they're going to be peaked, like the sun is going to be hitting those, just to again give it dimension. And if you wanted to go back and add like a little bit of pure white for like a cute little highlight, you can do that too, to make it look really dimensional. I think the more steps and the more layers you add to any painting, the more realistic it is. So hopefully you guys are finishing that up. And when you do finish it up, make sure that you sign your painting, because that was the last step. So you can grab one of your little liner brushes from this variety pack, and you can use a light color, or you can sign it however you like, but make sure you sign your painting. You can do it wherever you want, but I always like to use a liner brush. I just realized I was about to sign JP, but that's not my initials anymore. So I'm going to JJ.
Oh, it's your first painting.
I know. I've been signing JP. I've been signing JP for many, many years on all of my paintings, so that was a little bit weird, but yeah, make sure you sign your painting with your initials, or you can sign your full name. How you can see I've got my JP here. You can do it however you'd like. So make sure you sign your painting when you're done, because you should be really proud. I'm sure you just painted some really beautiful sunflowers. And again, you can totally paint the sides if you want to now. But that's it for Sunflower Fields.
I love that. Okay, now I have to pick a winner. If anybody doesn't have any more questions, I hate this part.
That's always like a drum roll. I love it.
I know, I hate it.
Thank you guys for joining so much. This is so much fun. I love painting on Monday nights with all of you. You're all so nice. I'm reading all your questions now.
I know.
Your comments are popping up on my screen right now. I'm looking.
Everybody's going crazy.
You're all so welcome. It's a blast. I'm glad you guys have fun.
All right. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I am picking at random on my phone. So
Lindsay's our videographer here. She's doing a drum roll in the background.
Oh, a lot of pressure. Christina Olivia.
Woo! Christina, congratulations.
So Christina
Awesome.
Olivia, so you need to go to your to our Plaids Facebook page and direct message us and let us know that you won watching Paint Night Live from Michael's Community Classroom. So just go and check out on Facebook. That's Plaid Crafts Facebook page, and direct message us, and we'll make sure we get product out to you.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in and spending Monday night with us. Thank you, Michaels, for having us again. We will be back next Monday. So thank you everybody. Jesse will be back in 2 weeks, but I will be here with Kirsten, so we'll still have a lot of fun. And thank you guys so much for joining.
Yeah,
have a great night, everybody.
Bye.